Hey, Fire fans, welcome back to Feed the Fire, a Chicago Fire podcast where we are talking all things Chicago Fire FC and Major League Soccer. Great to have you with us as we look forward to the Chicago Fire's season opener, home opener this weekend against the New York City Football Club, against NYCFC. As a reminder, our show is brought to you by Skira Icelandic Spring Water, available at your local 7-Eleven. And in this episode, we are going to look at a few different things. We're going to look at some news from the Fire, new signing over the line finally. There's been rumors about it. We finally got the deal done. We're going to preview the match against NYCFC, and we're going to also talk a little bit about coaching expectations and expand upon some of the things we talked about in prior episodes about head coach, manager Ezra Hendrickson, and we will get you in and out in about 20 minutes or so, and you can enjoy all the MLS content. So first off, though, I do got to start with a small kind of retraction, addition, revision. In my Eastern Conference picks last episode, I threw in St. Louis, even though they're in the Western Conference. My thought was I was trying to compare them to Chicago for kind of wooden spoon contender, bottom of the league finisher. Like people are saying it's the expansion side or it's going to be Chicago Fire as bad as they are. And I guess that's what I was trying to compare and kind of get them in the conversation of the wooden spoon. And in doing so, it sounded like I lumped them in as part of my Eastern Conference picks. So that was not my intention. Want to apologize for any confusion I may have caused. They are in the Western Conference. Nashville, in the meantime, has moved back to the Eastern Conference, and I just wanted to clarify that. Now, let's get into Chicago Fire news. Big news, the signing that had been kind of in the works that, yes, it was there, but no, it wasn't. But now it is finally a done deal. The club and the league have announced that the Chicago Fire have signed a new under-22 initiative player, Giorgos Koutsias, from Greece. He came up through PAOK, P-A-O-K, Athens Academy, and had started getting minutes with the Greek youth national teams. He was on loan to Volos, another Greek team in the top flight. And for 19 years old, he's got some decent experience playing around the Greek league for a couple seasons. Again, Greek youth national team caps, and also some appearances in the Greek Super League. I think he may even scored a goal in the Greek Super League, their domestic cup. So he seems to be a very good signing, a good bit of business. It's been rumored that his fee is $2.5 million, and he will occupy a U22 initiative spot. So that leaves the Fire with still a DP spot open that they are still rumored to be looking at for a striker. They signed Kai Kamara. They have Kasper Shabilko and Victor Becerra. They now have Giorgos Koutsias, and they're still out there looking for a star striker to drop a DP contract on. So they are definitely building their offense. I don't see them using that DP spot for any other position. You typically don't find wing backs or outside backs getting DP contracts, and the Chicago Fire are set at center back, at least for the time being. Hopefully, knock on wood, the injury bug doesn't hit them too hard. Anyway, I really like the signing of Koutsias, not only because I am also Greek and I love seeing Greeks come to the league. I think they're the next hotbed of talent. We've seen MLS go South American. We have and really bring a lot of young talent up from South America. We have also seen the MLS kind of go through the Scandinavian countries, the French League 2. There was a handful of players that came in. We've seen players come out of Poland and Serbia and other Eastern European countries. So I think this is kind of the next trend we're going to see, because not only did you have Koutsias come over, but you also have Giacomakis, who signed a deal with Atlanta United. You also had Taxi Fontes, who's with DC United, who came over last year and was a big success for that club. You have Maninos Tsionis, who has been playing with Sporting Kansas City. He is a Greek from Cyprus. And then, of course, you've got Canadian Greek James Bandemis, goalkeeper as well. So there are a lot of Greeks in the league, or players of Greek descent. And I think that that's going to be your next hotbed of talent. So keep an eye out for Greeks who are playing over in Eastern Europe, who may come over in the next year or two, especially with the success that those players have had. I think this is a great signing, and I may have alluded to it in prior episodes for many, many reasons. Because if Koutsias produces, if he is an excellent scorer for the Chicago Fire and during this season can bag 12, 15 goals for them, then a couple things are going to happen. One, they're going to sell him for big money, similar to a John Duran, at least hopefully with, $20 million, $22 million potential there, 18 guaranteed. That would be one of the best case scenarios for the Fire to just bring in that much more cash. Another best case scenario is he's scoring, 12 to 15 goals over the next season or two, and the offers just aren't at that 10, 12, 14 million dollar range. So the Fire keep him. They have him right now on a guaranteed 3-year contract. So that's through the 2026 season. And I think there's a club option for a 4th season. So they have him under contractual control for up to 4 years, which is fantastic to have someone of this age and potential be under your control, at least from a business perspective. So good business for the Fire. And again, they get him for a $2.5 million rumored transfer fee. Even if they sell him for 5, 7, 9, they're still coming out on the upside. But I think the bigger upside is if you're not going to get 15 to 20 million for this player, then you keep him as part of the long-term future of the Chicago Fire. This is one of the first actual long-term pieces that we are seeing in place. We've noticed a lot of signings, and go back into the last couple episodes where I kind of run them down, that they're short-term signings, like the Gaston Jimenez deal to buy him down and put him on TAM, short-term signing. You see the Kai Kamara deal, short-term signing. You've seen the new defender that came up from USL, from Charleston, I believe, and his name is escaping me right now, but that's a 1-year deal, right? The Chicago Fire are putting guys on short-term deals, looking to see who they can build around for the future. I would love to see a long-term partnership of Brian Gutierrez and Giorgos Koutsias, but I don't know if that's going to be in the cards if the Fire are keen to sell these guys on for big money. But anyway, we're getting away from the Koutsias talk. Kind of my thoughts. He could be the piece that they start to build around and then bring a few academy guys up and around. But again, high upside for Koutsias. You either have him, bang in 15 plus goals for a season or two and sell him for big bucks. You have him bang in around 15 goals a season and then build around him. Or worst case scenario, he is a mediocre MLS player, no worse than any guy that's on the team, and then perhaps you can flip him for some allocation money within the league. So this deal, this signing has a lot of upside. And you know what? If Koutsias gets in with some of the Greek senior team, then his value is only going to go up. So excellent scouting, not just from a talent and player perspective, but from all the intangibles that are around this player. Not only his potential as an asset, but like he can only increase his value the more international play he gets. And there's tons of competition in Europe coming up. So wonderful, wonderful piece of business by the Fire. Whew, dare I say George Heights looks like he knows what he's doing? That's maybe not the most popular opinion with a lot of Fire fans, people who wanted to see Mansueto clean house and get rid of Heights. But again, he's put a lot of guys on short-term deals. He's really focusing on the academy products, and then he gets this piece of business done after selling Slonina and Duran for tens of millions of dollars each. So George Heights might be sticking around. Now, I've said it before, maybe they create a new position and just put someone kind of on the sporting side of things and keep him more on the business technical side, but we'll see what ends up happening. But right now, the Koutsias signing is an excellent piece of business. I'm all in for it. And again, not just because I'm Greek. I might have to do a Saganaki meter just to see how hot they are. The Opa meter, right? We'll break some plates. We'll fry some cheese. We'll enjoy ourselves here at Feed the Fire. Yeah, and with Saganaki, we can absolutely feed the Fire. Put a little of that nice booze on top, and a little bourbon on top, flame it up. We'll be great here. Side note, when I worked the Greek fests back home, that was my specialty, making the Saganaki. Anyway, that is the Koutsias news. That's the latest Fire news. Also, if you want to check out a little bit more insight, pull the curtain back a little bit with the Chicago Fire, go check out the Intercontinental Football Show. It's the Chicago Fire podcast hosted by Tyler Terrence. the voice of the Fire and new Apple broadcaster. He's got a bunch of interviews with players and executives and things, so go check that out. It's a good listen. Now, let's look at the upcoming match preview against New York City. When I looked at the odds earlier today, and it's March 1st when I'm recording this, and the game is Saturday, March 4th. The odds are about evenly split between New York win, Chicago win, and a draw. I think if you're looking at plus minuses, the odds are a little bit more in favor of the draw. Let's take a look at New York City first, right? Now, last week, they had a 2-0 loss at Nashville to open the season. I was at that game. It was a blast. The stadium was jumping. Nashville somehow, though, despite controlling the game for most of the time, at least in my opinion, only had like 32% possession. New York City had 68% possession, but only generated 9 shots, 2 of which were on target. Now, those 2 came in the first half, and had one or either of them gone in, or either or both of them gone in, I should say, whole different dynamic of that game, right? Gary Smith's got to put his subs in earlier. He doesn't wait to the 70-ish, 72nd minute to sub in Hani Mukhtar. Maybe you see Dax McCarty come in to try and be a little bit more possession-based. Dax didn't get subbed in at all that game. Maybe that changes the dynamic. But really, New York City didn't know what to do with the possession. And you can see them looking for creative ideas without Maxi Morales. Additionally, Alexander Collins and Anton Tinnerholm are no longer with New York City. They've moved on to other clubs. And even though they are defenders, in New York City's high possession, pusher players, pusher wingbacks forward, those guys were very influential in the attack, in the offense, even as defenders. So you were missing a lot of that. You had Maxime Chanot, who's been a vet with New York City, playing a lot of balls side to side rather than looking downfield to try and maybe put one over the top of the Nashville defense or try to force something up the middle of the field. So you really saw a lot of lack of creativity, a lack of, if you want to get into the advanced metrics, kind of the key passes. That was missing from New York City's attack. Nashville, again, they had a good midfield. They kind of locked things down in the mid, and then New York City could not adjust and come up the wings just because they lost those players in the offseason. Again, to Nashville's credit, they controlled the midfield. They kept a good defensive shape. Joe Willis came up with a couple big saves, because I am worried now that those 2 shots that Willis had to come with big saves, does Chris Brady make those saves? Does Spencer Ritchie, if he's starting, make those saves? I don't know. Joe Willis had a very good game for Nashville to keep a clean sheet, as much as the defense and the possession-based midfield for Nashville did. Again, Talles Magno, he looked really good. He scares me as a Chicago Fire fan looking ahead a few days to a game against New York City. He will take a rip from 25 yards out if you give him a little bit of space. That Fire defense needs to be on top of him. They need to shadow him. They cannot give him any space to operate. Additionally, Matthias Pellegrini had a couple good looks. I heard on the Extra Time podcast that he was kind of asked to be more of a possession-based player when he's really more of a winger, because of the absence of Maxi Morales and them not developing another kind of a ball-handling possession player, puppeteer pulling the strings, maestro in the midfield. Pick whatever metaphor you want for it. But he did find a couple looks, and again, Joe Willis made some great saves, and the Nashville defense got in the shooting lanes. I think this is a great matchup for the Chicago Fire to open the season. You have a team in New York City coming off of a loss, still struggling to figure out who they are and what they're going to do. I shouldn't say struggling to figure out who they are, but how these players fit into that system, because they're being asked to do a lot of different things now because they had such roster turnover in the offseason. And New York City is a possession-based team. We know that. All of City Football Group plays like that, from Manchester City to New York City to their clubs around the world. I think that suits the Fire well, because the Fire have been able to absorb pressure. At least we saw it last season, and their defense hasn't changed too much. They've been able to absorb a lot of that pressure, have a solid defensive foundation. Thank you, assistant coach, defensive coach CJ Brown. And then the problem is the Fire were never able to successfully counterattack. You can get Mueller in the channels and get him running up the wings. You can get Kasper Shabilko kind of one-on-one with a defender pushing up the field, but they're unable to actually get a quality shot off. That has always been the problem. It was either it's the pass before the pass, if you want to call it that, or it's that key pass leading to a shot that they just couldn't get it off. And the few times they got it to Shabilko's feet, he kind of muffed it, right? The Fire were best last season absorbing pressure, getting a turnover, outlet pass to Shaqiri or Gutierrez, long ball to Duran running one-on-one against the defender, right? Or outpacing a defender in on goal. That's when they were at their offensive best last season. That's what I would love to see them do this season. Let Jairo Torres go. Let Kasper Shabilko run if he's going to be your starting forward. Probably is. I don't think Kamara's going to be starting because of not only his recent signing, but I would question the legs he has since he's been without a team. Actually, no, he hasn't been without a team. I don't know how much he's been training. Koutsias isn't going to be available to the best of my knowledge, especially with them just announcing that signing a couple days ago. So they're going to have to find Shabilko. They're going to have to find Becerra running in and behind these guys. And I think that kind of suits Becerra. I haven't watched him a lot with Fire 2, but he can score goals, and he has been scoring for Fire 2. Let's just get him some consistent minutes with the first team, and hopefully that's how they can play. I'm not optimistic that they're going to get that from Shabilko because of everything we've seen last season, and just because, I'm a Chicago sports fan. I'm pessimistic by default. Also, my day job, I'm a lawyer. So I'm also pessimistic by default there, right? Always looking for the worst case scenario to advise my clients on what to do when and if that happens. For the Chicago Fire, it was always a when the worst case scenario happens, right? So I like the matchup because the Fire should be able to absorb pressure and spring the counter. I am still worried about their finishing ability, their key passing there. Now, how will the Fire line up? If they stick with their 4-2-3-1 like they did last season, they may be able to absorb some of that pressure, but I don't think they're going to be able to really create the turnovers in the areas they need to get the ball. If they shift to the 4-3-3, maybe they'll be able to kind of win those turnovers and have those quicker outlets. They'll be able to have more players back in more of a defensive zone, say, and maybe pull some of those New York defenders out of position. They want to start pushing up higher, and the Fire catch them on the counter. But we will see what Ezra Hendrickson trots out for the opener. Speaking of Ezra Hendrickson, we're approaching 20 minutes. Just wanted to take a couple minutes to look at our second-year head coach. He was a fantastic player, an even better assistant coach in Columbus and Seattle, but I still think he's got a long way to go as a great head coach in this league, let alone a good head coach in this league. He needs to address his formations and his substitutions and his tactics. We talked about them in some prior episodes. The formation, the 4-2-3-1, was consistent throughout the entire season. I think maybe one game they played a 4-3-3. Always 4-2-3-1. His sub patterns, he was consistently subbing in at the 65th minute, his first sub, and then like the 75th minute, his second sub, and then like an 85th, 88th minute, just last gasp attempt. Of course, there were exceptions for injuries, yellow card accumulations, things of that nature, or just, throwing caution to the wind when you're down 2 or 3 goals. But that was typically his substitution patterns, and opposing coaches caught on and were able to adjust and outcoach him, move their subs in before his. Switch their little tactical adjustments. Even if the formations were a favorable matchup, X's and O's for the Fire, opposing coaches were able to put little tactical wrinkles in, maybe overload on one side, or kind of move a few of their guys around and take advantage of some one-on-one matchups. I would love to see Ezra look at Chris Mueller and see which defenders Chris Mueller can take one-on-one and maybe move him around the field depending on the opposing defense. I think Chris Mueller is excellent at running up and down the wings, beating one defender off the dribble, and then playing a ball into the forwards. And maybe if he has a little hold-up play, then that second and third attacker running into the box. I think Mueller should be able to get a lot of assists this season if everyone's playing well. So again, we need to address formation, sub patterns, tactical changes, halftime adjustments. Now, a lot of this had to do with the fact they didn't have much talent last year. Let's be honest. Outside of their starting 11, there really wasn't much the Fire could do to match up talent-wise with the rest of the league. So they really couldn't make the halftime adjustments, but you still have to at least try and see who can step up from the bench. Now, Ezra's got to put his players in the position to succeed. And we talked about last year that kind of fell apart because he didn't have the talent. Maybe giving him the benefit of the doubt. He was kind of testing tactics, styles, seeing what players are there. We saw the Fire let guys go. Ivanov, Sekulic, Andre Reynolds, Bornstein, they let those guys go because they either didn't fit or didn't produce to the level that was expected of them. But one reason I am not confident going forward, despite all those doubt benefits that I'm giving, you look at that Columbus Crew game where we're up 2-0 at halftime, and then they give up 3 goals. Ezra Hendrickson could not adjust to the team that he was just coming from coaching. So that bothers me. I'm hoping that with this extra offseason, they also can build some camaraderie and cohesion and a better team culture. You saw last season a lot of players getting frustrated. You saw a couple games when the head coach got frustrated and was on the field screaming at the refs. I think one of his players actually held him back in one instance. You can't have that if you're trying to build a strong mental culture where you forget the last play and move forward, where you want to build a winning culture, where you focus on the positive things you're supposed to be doing, not getting caught up in the heat of the moment. So that's what I'm also going to look for throughout the season. It might not be evident in this first game, but definitely within the first 5 or 6 games, we should see if the Fire's mentality is back. No more silly yellow cards, right? None of that stuff. We should be done with all of that. Seems like CJ Brown is doing really well with his defenders in that aspect, but it's got to get picked up by the rest of the squad. I don't want to see Chris Mueller jumping up and down, waving his hands when he doesn't get the ball, regardless of how open he thinks he is or he actually is. I don't want to see Shaqiri walking back. I don't want to see Jimenez out of place, trotting back instead of running to pick up the defense. Those kind of things. And again, no silly yellow cards, no arguing with the refs. I like CJ Brown. I like Zach Thornton coming back as our goalkeeper coach. I think that's great for what a young Chris Brady needs, an experienced coach and an experienced player. My biggest question mark on the coaching staff has always been Frank Klopas. I support the guy as a fellow Greek, as a fellow Hellene, and I would sit down with him at any restaurant in Greek town at any time of day, anytime he wants to. But Klopas has been part of the Chicago Fire organization for over a decade now. Wasn't that good of a head coach, wasn't that good of an interim coach, was a phenomenal player for them and deservedly in the Ring of Fire. But we've seen him on the bench now as an assistant coach through 3 different coaching staffs. I wonder what value he is bringing. I don't know enough about the coaching staff and what their specific roles are in order to say, oh, no, we got to definitely keep Frank Klopas, or he's not bringing any added value, or like, what is he doing there? Does he have some like ridiculous contract for life with Major League Soccer and the Chicago Fire? I don't know. If anyone out there knows what's going on with Frank Klopas and the value he adds, it might be nice to get a new voice in that locker room after 5 years of missing the playoffs and him always being there on the bench. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. We're going to wrap up this episode. I think the Chicago Fire come away with at least a point. I'm trying to be optimistic as a Fire fan. Home opener, season opener. Let's go get 3 points and beat NYC like 3-1. But I also have to be a realist. So I'm going to pick a 2-2 draw here. I think the Fire do get the offensive spark at home, but I just don't think the defense has it to last an entire 90 minutes of their guys up front. So, you know what? I take that back. 1-1 draw. I'll give the defense a little credit. I won't give too much to the offense so far. They got to prove me wrong. Because in MLS, you are what you are until you're not. And the Fire are not an offensive team. So I'll say 1-1 Fire for the home opener. And if you want to leave your comments, you can find me across social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Glasshouse Soccer. You can email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com. Don't forget, like the video and subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating and review us. We are across just about all major podcasting platforms, Stitcher, Google, iTunes. wherever you find it. We're on Spotify, Anchor, we're there. So we look forward to your support. We look forward to enjoying the game with you. Let's go Fire.